Welcome everybody to our first Ordinary Council meeting. Members of the public are advised the meeting will be recorded and an audio recording of the meeting will be made publicly available on Council's website. Nillumbik Shire Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land in which we're meeting here tonight. We would also like to pay our respects to the elders, both past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Indigenous Australians present. In the absence of one of our local ministers, I'll now read the prayer. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon this council. We pray for guidance in our deliberations, and we ask you to grant us wisdom and sensitivity as we deal with the business of our Shire to achieve the best outcomes for the people of Nillumbik. Amen. We have no apologies and no presentations. Could I have a mover for the confirmation of minutes for the Ordinary Council meeting held on Tuesday, the 28th of April, 2020.
Moved.
Moved Councillor Clark. Seconded Councillor Jemerick. As per the papers. All those in favour? And that is carried. Any disclosures of conflicts of interest to declare, councillors? If not, we have no petitions, and at first for tonight, we have no questions from the gallery. So we will move straight on to our first report, which is AC 005-20 Advisory Committee Report. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Ashton.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation. The council notes the minutes of the following meetings. Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee, 11th of December 2019. Environment and Sustainable Advisory Committee, 19th of February 2020. And Municipal Health and Wellbeing Plan Advisory Committee meeting held on the 30th of April. Can we have a seconder, please?
Councillor Brooker. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ashton?
Just briefly, look, the Environment and Sustainability Committee are really going to be focusing on implementing parts of the Green Waste Management Plan. They're already looking at sustainable land management practices, nature conservation, biodiversity, tourism and ecotourism, and the things we always concentrate on, which is weed management. We're also probably going to have a look at agriculture and hobby farms, and of course recycling and waste management, as well as renewable energy. There also will be putting a lot into our climate change action plan, which is sort of happening as we speak. And also recently they've been very much involved in discussions around the impact of the Queensland fruit fly, which can have potential devastating impacts on Nillumbik with the orchards and the agriculture we have. So again, I thank the committee and the officers for their ongoing support and for the work they've done in this space. With regard to the Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee, their last meeting was on the 30th of April, and they were already preempting a lot of the work and a lot of the issues that would come out of COVID-19. They were looking at the potential impacts of homeschooling, impacts on mental health, isolation, and also family violence. And also, I think things like the Yarra Plenty Regional Library at that time were going to be calling all people over 70s just to touch base. So they were all good things. They made a lot of recommendations to council about council sort of bringing all the information together and keeping all the services informed. And I think it's a big tick to all our community health team here that we actually did do that. And you can see that work being mapped out as early as April this year. So again, well done, and thank the committees. Our committees are really, really good in Nillumbik, and they're an absolute pleasure to work with. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Councillor Demerit, do you wish to speak?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak to the item? If not, we'll move straight into voting. All those in favour? And that is unanimous. That is carried.
Just a quick point of order, if I could, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Perkins.
Could I ask, or through the chair, could Councillor Clark please remove his advertising material from behind him? That's inappropriate, in my view. We are heading into an election period, but we don't need to see two Peter Clarks on the one screen.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Point noted. Can you please remove the sign, Councillor Clark?
I see no contravention of the Local Government Act. I see no contravention of the Code of Conduct. I do note the contravention of Councillor Perkins just trying to make a fool of him. I suggest we move on.
We will move on. We'll move on to the first report, which is 071.
Now that we've worked out who's running the meeting, we can.
Can you go on to the next item, please?
Are we able to
We
bring?
do have a slight delay. We're going to have to slow down proceedings slightly because the staff, is a 30-second delay so that they can get the appropriate item up on the screen. So we'll now move on to 71, the draft budget consideration of submissions. Can I please have a mover for OCM 71?
Happy to move that, Mayor, as per the papers.
Councillor Rankin, thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Clark. Councillor Rankin.
Thank you, Mayor. We spoke pretty thoroughly about this last week or last fortnight in regards to the recommendation that there were 32 submitters in regards to the draft budget. We considered all the submitters and we'll actually consider this in the next item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Councillor Clark.
Yes, Mayor, I just want to comment that and appreciate the effort that residents and businesses went to make their submissions. I think this is a year we've had more submissions than most. And I also just want to highlight some of those submissions were clearly calling on us to freeze the rates. There are businesses doing it hard. There are residents who no doubt with the hardships that they're currently dealing with will struggle in terms of to pay their rates. So anything we can do in that space, and I hope we listen as we move forward to adopt the rates in the short term, where we will be able to undertake that and freeze the rates whilst maintaining services. So I thank the residents for their submissions and I hope they will be duly noted.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors wish to comment? If not, we'll move straight into the voting. All those in favour? And that is carried. We now move on to the next item, OCM 072, which is the adoption of the budget 2020 to 2021, declaration of rates and charges. Can I have a mover for the item, please? Councillor
Happy to
Rankin.
move that, Mayor. We would like to add an amendment into the recommendation. Have we got that up on the screen yet?
Give the staff one moment, as I said before. One moment. Slight technical hitch.
Meeting. We have some new emerging notes that have or funding opportunities that have come to light in the last couple of days, and to be fair and listening to the residents, we would like to allow some additional time to be able to implement and confirm these, to be able to go through further. Sorry, I just need to clarify, it's not the 6th of June, it's actually the 9th of June to have a special meeting to to adopt the budget then, please, Mayor.
I'm happy to
So-
second that, Mayor, but can I just ask the question? I thought we might be going to have a special meeting. Sorry, you're picking the 9th of June. Sorry, no, I'll take that back. I understand the date and happy to second that.
We now have it up on the screen for all the other councillors. Right, so we have a seconder. We'll go back to you, Councillor Rankin. Do you need to say any more?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I don't want to go on too much. I spoke in detail, and again, there'll be an opportunity to further clarify further points as to where we're heading. These new grant fundings or potential grants have come to light in the last few days. We've been listening to the residents. The residents are looking for a 0% rate increase. And just to be clear, with a 0% rate increase, not all residents are going to have a 0% increase on their rate notice. Whilst we adopt a 0% rate increase, if a resident's property has increased in value, then there is a potential that their rates will actually increase. If the resident's property value has decreased, then essentially there could be, and I say could be, a decrease in their rate notice as well. So whilst council says that we are trying and working towards a 0% rate increase, there are going to be minor fluctuations across the community. For the moment, I'll leave it at that point. But I think next, the special meeting, then I've got some further detail that we'll be able to go into. It's prevalent to also note, as I mentioned last fortnight, that we've had a massive reduction in our rates. We've been managing to be able to keep the level of service at a high level for the last 3.5 years, and we will continue to do that for the next 6 months and beyond that as well. We've paid back significant amount of loans in our time as well, and we've been able to maintain a good fiscal management within the organisation as well. I'll leave it at that for the moment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Councillor Clark.
Excuse me, Mayor, just a point of order, and I'd maybe defer to the finance manager if he's there, but I think there was some rather imprecise language used about increasing in value of properties having a 0% increase. I think what is really the case, if it's an increase above the average, it may be more than whatever is mooted as 0%, or it is the average that is the critical feature, not if your property has gone up in value or down in value, but if it's
Correct.
increased more than the average. That is the crucial thing.
That is absolutely correct, Councillor Brooker. Mr. Lombardi is actually nodding to me that you are correct. Thank you for the clarification.
And just a clarification as well to Mr. Lombardi, if I could,
Yes.
through the chair.
Councillor Perkins.
Just, correct the statement. I was quite puzzled by the quote. We've seen a massive reduction in our rates. I've not known anyone to claim that up until tonight. Mr. Lombardi, have we had a massive reduction in our rates?
Through the chair, councillors. So with regard to the comment of massive reduction in rates have been increased in line with the rate cap or reduced under this council term.
So if I may, Mayor.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Perkins? More technical difficulties. Can you hear me, Councillor Perkins?
It sounds like we're going to get a clarification from Councillor Rankin, so I'll defer to Councillor Rankin if that's okay with you.
Councillor Rankin?
Thank you, Mayor. By my comments there, what I'm meaning is that we've been well below the rate cap, particularly over the last 2.5, 3 years. So it is a massive reduction compared to the rate cap. So the residents have been saving a considerable amount of money. If we vary back to 2010 where there was a rate increase of 6.4%. In 2011, there was a 5.95% increase. In 2012, there was a 5.9% increase. And in 2013, there was a 9.95% rate increase. So when you compare it to those, Councillor Perkins, and I wasn't going to go into that sort of detail tonight, but you've raised the subject, so thank you for that, that our residents have had massive savings compared to what they have in the last 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So they have had a massive saving.
Taken only, thank you.
Through the chair. Through the chair, could someone unmute the chair?
Unmute, Karen.
Sorry, we are having some feedback problems. Councillor Demerit.
I just wondering if I could, a question to Mr. Lombardi. Would it be more accurate to say that we have had a slow in the increase of rates rather than a decrease in rates?
Through the chair, that would be correct, Councillor Demerit.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, in short, what we're seeking to defer is this resolution tonight for a couple of weeks, whilst we take into account the announcement by the federal government earlier, or late last week, about a likely $740,000 or $39,000 grant available to the Shire. Equally, I know a number of councils, including myself, are keen to see what we can continue to do to diminish any need for borrowings. And so I think we're looking to take this next fortnight to see how that would play out. Currently, as the budget's proposed at the minute, we have some borrowings in there, and that's something that this council hasn't been doing in the past over the last 3 years, something which we'll diminish to do. Just to pick up Councillor Rankin's point, clearly what this council has been about is keeping the rates low. It'll be the only council in Victoria, if it continues to pass, which I expect it will, a freeze in rates over 2 years of the 4-year term. And of the other 2 years, it reduced municipal charges and it reduced, it was below the cap. So the analogy that he seeks to make is absolutely correct, that this council is keen to keep rates low, but this is a deferral of the budget. Got to say, we're looking to do the freezing of the rates, but increase services, which is a pretty good outcome. I can't see the time clock here, so someone might need to run that, nor can I hear the Mayor. So I just wanted to highlight one of the areas which both Councillor Egan and I are on, which is the library. And the budget as it's currently proposed, and I expect would be adopted, increases the hours that the library will be open. And it does it quite considerably across all of our libraries. So Diamond Valley Library will be open longer hours. The Eltham Library will be open longer hours, particularly on Sundays. And very importantly for the rural councillors, there will be the opening of the Hurstbridge Hub, where you'll be able to pick up books at that location. You'll be able to drop off books at that location, and there'll be a small offering of some more popular books available at the same time whilst we move towards developing a further library to the north. So that's just one of the new issues which is in the budget. I'm sure we'll talk about it more when we get to formally adopt it, but it is a matter of how we can continue to do this whilst diminishing borrowings, and that was the point that Councillor Rankin was making, and I think made very well. So I commend the resolution to defer it, to tidy this up and see how we can continue to diminish borrowings whilst maintain the program that we're anticipating.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors wish to speak?
Can I say it would be handy if we can get that clock to be up on the screen somewhere so we can see what
it is up on the screen, Councillor Clark. May I suggest you increase the parameters of your screen?
Can't make it any bigger. Can anybody else see it?
Yep.
Everybody else can see the clock?
If you go up into the...
Anyway, that's all right.
Councillor Mary.
Through the chair, there's someone's whispering in the background and we can hear them. So if we just be careful, please.
Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Brooker.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I would just like to say that, and we're deferring the budget tonight, which I think is a good decision. That said, I cannot support it as it was presented for the reasons many. But if you look at dot point 13 in the papers, we have capex of 32.874 million funded by council grants and contributions and our own rates, and 1.153 million by borrowings. If you don't want to increase rates, that's fine. That's a decision you can come to, but you need to make the commensurate spending decisions that reflect that. Sure, if you're looking for budget submissions and people, they'll always say they want a 0% rate rise. It's a very popular decision, doesn't mean it's a correct one, doesn't mean it's a responsible one, and doesn't mean it's a decision, I think, displaying sound judgment. So the reason for the deferral, I think, is worth getting into. There was an announcement on Friday afternoon about a grant of $739,151. How they came up with that is through a very complex formula of roads to recovery the federal government used in other areas of grants to us. But what it really means is we have to see where the $739,000 can be spent and see if it can mean that we won't have to do any borrowings. And that is certainly, I guess, my hope, but we need some clarification around that. And I certainly think it may be that we can't. And it may be that we come back on the 9th of June and we're faced with the same problem of, from my point of view, of a $100 million budget, but it's the 1 point is out. But there's all sorts of reasons why you need to borrow. I don't want to make a blanket statement, oh, I'm against borrowing. No, I am not. When you need some capex to borrow some money, that's what you should do. You get assets today that you wouldn't otherwise get. That's fine. But when you don't have to borrow, when you can find some alternatives, that is what you should do. That is what you must do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm comfortable to support the deferral until the 9th of June. I'm also quite comfortable to propose and support the budget based on a 0% rate increase. If we can in the next week or two find another income source to offset our borrowings of 1.153 million, I think it is, 1.153 million, that essentially pays for that 0% rate increase. I'm happy to consider that. At the moment, I'm comfortable with the borrowings. What we are doing is not putting the rates up as a line item across the Shire. There will be some ratepayers that will have to pay more rates, some less, depending on the movement of their capital improved value most recently. So we can't say that, nobody's going to get an increased bill. They will get an increased bill. There's increased fees and charges. There's increased fire service levy. Things tend to go up. But we're not looking to, at a 0% rate increase, we're not looking to bring any more money in from the rate base per se, through the rates. So a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of businesses are currently not open. I think it is reasonable for us to try to not put the rates up at all, and that's what we're seeking to do. In borrowing the money, what it means, of course, is that it'll have to be repaid at some future time by ratepayers into the future, and that's the harsh reality of it. I'd rather see some borrowings and low interest rates at the moment to enable that 0%. I'm not supportive of attacking the capital works program or deferring projects or along the lines of Councillor Brooker. But when it comes back, I'll be happy to support 0% and 1.153 million in borrowings on the basis that we can't find another income source in the intervening period. So I'm happy to support the motion for deferral.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. And just a technical point, can you try and keep closer to your screen? Every time you turn your head, your voice is disappearing. I'm not sure whether the other councillors are having the same problem, but we in the council chambers are losing your sound.
Okay, is that any better?
Yeah, just try
I'll
and
just
keep
move
it.
I'll move the screen a bit closer.
That's better. Thank
It's
you.
important that I'm heard.
It's important that everybody has a chance to be heard. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, technically, has he got a right of reply? Hasn't he? Because Councillor Crooked, no, he didn't. We're all in agreement. All right, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. That item will be deferred to the next OCM. Special meeting before the OCM. Just giving staff a chance to get to the next item, which is 073. Now it's up on the screen. The Audit and Risk Committee meeting 2020. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Rankin.
Happy to move it as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
Seconded.
Seconded, Councillor Clark. Councillor Rankin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just short, it's more a procedural one, but the EMT and the officers are doing a terrific job. The Risk and Audit Committee come together every quarter and review all the finances and the risk of the business and look at it from an OH&S point of view as well. I'd like to pay a particular thank you to Vince and the team, and particularly the Craig and the Health and Safety and OH&S team. They're doing a terrific job in making sure that our workers are safe and the public is also safe as well. Whilst there's been a couple of minor hiccups, there's been some great work that Craig and the team have been doing, particularly in the reporting and putting new procedures and policies in place. So well done, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Councillor Clark.
Mayor, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things because audit can, by some measures, be seen to be a bit dry. But in particular, there was a couple of things which came out of this because it's actually the audits which I think the community benefits. We've completed an audit update of the Pound facility, which has been fully implemented and was commented upon by the Audit Committee as an excellent piece of work, but also has improved the quality of the Pound, the way in which it manages lost animals, seeks to return them to owners, and we have done some capital works there to also increase the quality of what we do. The other important piece of work which was discussed at the last meeting was the Disability Inclusion Audit Report. A number of councillors have spoken about disability inclusion, probably none more than Councillor Ashton, but this again is an excellent piece of work under an audit of the council to ensure that we are doing everything we possibly can to ensure that anybody in the community who is disabled has every opportunity to participate in council activities. And indeed, all of our parks and other gathering places are inclusive. I think from Councillor Perkins' perspective, and you'll have picked up on the new regional playground in Diamond Creek, the Audit Committee and the personnel involved in that, welcome back, had picked up the problems that were likely to have occurred within that regional play space to ensure that it was fit for those with disability. And so the council has acted on that, and we've allocated some resources and dollars to ensure that it is included. So this is the good work that the Audit Committee does do. It does independently review all of the actions of the council over the journey, and there are clear audit programs that we do, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of those which are important and the outcomes which have been important for our community. Commend the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you. We now move on to 074, the draft Nillumbik housing strategy. Staff okay?
Mayor, I'm happy to move the recommendation just with one addition under item 1. Endorses the draft Nillumbik housing strategy, provided an attachment 1 for public consultation with amendments. Sorry, and they've picked up the words there. Subject to the following change of the legend on page 45 to be amended to reflect the correct overlays. For those that have got page 45, you'll note that it currently says that most of Hurstbridge and half the rural sections are all going to flood. So not expecting Noah through anytime soon. And the legend is just incorrect and needs to be amended before it goes out. So, I move that resolution, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Can I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Do you wish to speak? Any other councillors wish to speak?
So I haven't spoken yet, Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Clark. Going back to you, we're having a few technical problems here and I'm getting distracted. All right, staff, over to you.
So just to set the context for this, and what we are doing tonight is going out for public consultation. We're not adopting the strategy. We've certainly had briefings on it. We took some submissions on it even a week or so ago. But we're now going out for formal public consultation. And I know councillors across the board will probably all see some minor issues that they would like to see amended or changed or whatever else to suit their local circumstances. Having said that, we really want to hear from the broader community, and then we'll collect all of that information up when it comes back to the council in August. The documents required, as it is part of a suite of sort of planning reforms, if you like, and a requirement by the state government to have completed a housing strategy every 15 years. Some might suggest that it would be good to have done this more often. And I think there's an argument for that. But what this does propose at the end of the day, and if you come to the back of the actual document, it does highlight that we will have, as the Shire of Nillumbik, the smallest increase in population and indeed change of housing stock, and if you like, of development of any municipality in any local government area in Victoria. So we have the lowest increment of change over the next 10 years. And that is essentially because of the unique boundaries of the Shire with the urban growth boundary. But it also reflects the topography, it reflects the various overlays. But this is really talking about very, very small change at the end of the day. And I think we're all well aware that often the community doesn't like any change at all in terms of planning. You know, the constant commentary you often get is, oh, well, you know, there's going to be more traffic on the roads, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. But what this document is trying to deal with is not increase in density, but rather increase in diversity. Because what the document sets out is the change in our demographic, that the massive growth in age group of persons 65 years and over. The question is, how do you able to downsize whilst continuing to live within your local community? So it's seeking to deal with a diversity of housing stock, not a change of density in any significant manner. Indeed, the terminology that is used in the document is all about increments, you know, whether it's, I'll just pick up a couple of the terms, whether it's limited incremental change or some incremental change, and the only area of substantial change is in the activity centres. And that's designed so that if there is going to be substantial change, and that is essentially around the areas immediately abutting the train stations in Eltham and Diamond Creek, where we have seen, at least in Eltham terms, some apartments, that if you're able to garner any increase in density there, then you can quarantine the balance of the Shire from any dramatic increase in densities. There are a range of debates about how you prepare these documents. I think many would suggest it would be preferable to be able to run concurrently, or indeed some might want to even have completed a neighbourhood strategy, housing strategy and neighbourhood character strategy in conjunction with the document. It is important that we continue that piece of work, but this document in itself doesn't seek to change neighbourhood character, but rather seeks to retain what is there and what has already been identified. And indeed, we've been very successful at VCAT over the last 2 or 3 years of being able to defend the current neighbourhood character and basically winning in 90% of the cases which we've taken to there, which we've ended up with there. But indeed, going forward, neighbourhood character study is something that this council won't get to conclude, but certainly is something that we would be recommending does occur in the early part of the next council post-November. This is the first document that goes out, and then we start to look at what you would do about neighbourhood character. So this is I think a good piece of work to be able to put out. We've put a lot of work into it. Our officers and our consultants have. We look forward to seeing what the community has to say, and then we'll be able to take on all those issues and see what the final document does and comes back in August. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Ashton, if you don't wish to speak, any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. As you're aware and all councillors are aware, I certainly do not endorse this draft. I do not support this approach. I do not support the strategy. The purpose of this strategy is to establish a clear policy in influencing the location, the type, the form, the diversity and the scale of housing across the Shire. So when Councillor Park says it does not propose an increase in density, well, only a developer would say that, because it certainly does propose increases in density and massive increases in density. And furthermore, it proposes massive increases in density in areas where it just can't be sustained. So we have a look at the various maps, and we'll see that there's green areas and there's yellow areas and there's red areas and there's orange areas. So I don't think this should go out for public consultation, but if it does, I certainly want all the ratepayers in Diamond Creek to have a very, very good look at this, because this document is setting the framework for where all the future development, almost all the future development in Nillumbik will be concentrated around Diamond Creek. So Diamond Creek has, its future is dual occupancy throughout the whole of Diamond Creek. So dual occupancies in duplexes. It proposes villa units and townhouses. It proposes terraced houses. It proposes low-rise apartments. That's the whole of Diamond Creek. If you don't want that as your future in Diamond Creek, you need to jump up and down now about this document. It certainly shouldn't be going out for public consultation, because the cart has been put well and truly before the horse. What needed to happen before this document got to this stage, even proposed to go out for public consultation, is we should have done a neighbourhood character study. It's a neighbourhood character study that would have informed this document. But as things are at the moment, what we're sort of saying is that the Victorian Future, that's the state planning department, they've said that we should be looking at an extra 4,200 dwellings across Nillumbik. This document proposes 13,000. More than 3 times what the state government, Victorian Future, estimates. So they say we should have 4,193. This document plans for 12,772. The majority of those, unfortunately, for me, are in Diamond Creek. And that's just not, people in Diamond Creek, like people in Eltham, and like people in Hurstbridge, and like people in Panton Hill and Greensborough and Eltham North and right through the Shire, we want to protect our neighbourhood character. This document is doing exactly the opposite. This is a windfall for developers. This is sort of saying we should be looking at extra potentially 4,000 extra houses in the Shire. We're handing over 13,000. The plan to build an extra 13,000 dwellings in the Shire. Diamond Creek certainly can't sustain it. I can't speak for other wards, but I think every councillor should be opposing this strategy right now.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Demerit.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some concerns with this document. I think that Councillor Clark sort of did outline everyone's arguments, and I think he was quite astute at that. I don't know that just because he outlined them sort of makes them any less, and I don't know that his idea that diversity doesn't equate to density is defensible. I've encouraged, if this does go out to public consultation, I encourage people to have a very good look at it. I share some of Councillor Clark's concerns. My two major issues are that a lot of what we refer to in it talks about being consistent with neighbourhood character. We've already identified as a council that we have some real issues with our neighbourhood character, and that we need to spend about 200,000 on doing a really solid neighbourhood character review, and through that study underpin underpin documents like this. The other part of it is the lack of infrastructure and facilities. You know, we still got a lot of the Shire is not on sewerage. Our drainage is particularly poor. If we end up with a lot more roof space, hard surfaces, we're going to end up with greater flooding. And we know, we've all seen the issues that happen when we do end up with substantial rainfalls. The people who believe in climate change are telling us that we are going to end up with a lot more major weather or climate issues, and that's going to mean more rain. And again, we need to address these issues before we move forward. For the people of Edendale, I particularly look at where we're due for incremental change, which means a mix of detached dwellings, dual occupancies, townhouses, villa units, terraced houses, consistent with neighbourhood character objectives. And I see that that's outlined for below Sandra Avenue, between Bridge Road, Diamond Street, and back up towards Ryan's Road. And the reason for that is because of its proximity to public transport. I think that this is where we need some local nuancing into it. That means you've got to walk up a massive hill, down a massive hill, back up a massive hill to get to it. Most people will never make that walk. So, you know, the really needs to have a good look from the people who understand their areas and make sure that it does reflect what we want, what we need, while also attending to the other issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demery. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Brooker.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, the problem in releasing the strategy, the housing strategy for consultation, is it is only releasing one part of what is required to provide for the future direction for the look and feel of Nillumbik. The housing strategy can in part address the type, scale and mix of future housing. That's good. But what it can't do is properly integrate the look, feel of the neighbourhood with the surrounding predominant vegetation, tree canopy, visual aesthetic of the street. It is only one half of the conversation we need to have. And it is fundamental in Nillumbik that we update our neighbourhood character strategy. I mean, this is what we say is important to us: the retention of existing trees, the provision of new canopy trees within new developments. That's fundamental to sort of getting what we're all about. That's what attracts people to the area, and it's probably why they mostly retain, why they stay living in the area. So we need to know that we just need to do that. And residents need to know that the neighbourhood character policy was introduced into the Nillumbik planning scheme by C12 in 2004. That's 16 years ago. And the work that underpinned it is even older than that. It's almost 2 decades old. It is well overdue that there be a review of the neighbourhood character strategy, and a perfect time to do it is now that we are prosing to introduce a housing framework that is going to make a predetermined objective to achieve a housing policy to fit into a council plan timetable is not an outcome that you should be seeking. You need to do the policies concurrently. If the housing policy is delayed, that is far preferable than it being done wrong. And that is what we have. We have a bad process, and from experience, we know that a bad process frequently leads to a bad outcome. Now, councillors need to examine the draft. There are frequent repeated references to doing the policy in conjunction with a neighbourhood character study. So if there's any criticism about that, it has to include criticism of Echelon, who constantly refer to it in the document. If you look at page 12 of the document on page 138 of our papers, the housing strategy and the neighbourhood character strategy and other strategic work lead to this residential development framework. Both are required, not just one. So it's various other references, 49, 50, 51, 52 of the document, all reference that it has to be consistent with neighbourhood character objectives. That is why it has to be done together.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, right of reply. Oh, sorry, Councillor Rankin.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, Councillor Brooker's got some good points there. Councillor Clark has also got some very good points there as well. I support the document, but I also support and encourage the residents to read the document and to submit their comments to it. There's a number of different points here, and Councillor Brooker raised it just before. The clause that I identified that leads to residential development, but it also tightens the residential development as well. It keeps it within the neighbourhood character. The people of Swipers Gully are very agitated by a number of the developments that are going on there. And unfortunately, this is the first part to be able to recapture that again. There might be dual locks that might go up, but it's going to reduce a number of these larger blocks that are going up. Well, I hope so anyway, because that's what the residents of Swipers Gully are looking for. They don't want these big developments of 8 or 9 or 10 units going up on some of these blocks up the back of Parsons Road and around that area. So this is the first stage. So please, I encourage the residents to read the document, make their submissions, and put their voice heard through to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Right of reply, Councillor Clark. Unmute yourself, please.
Firstly, can I start by just saying, if you're in a rural precinct, to be frank, you won't notice any difference. There's virtually nothing occurs of any significance in the rural components, and that's essentially because it's outside the UGB. Can I also just to highlight to the scaremongery of Councillor Perkins, this is a document which sets a target given to us by the state government. The state government's target is that we need to have shown over the next 10 years where the Shire can accommodate 4,193 new dwellings. 4,193. This document proves on page 62, if you want to read the document, that this sets out how you achieve 4,227 over a decade. 34 more than is required by the state. 34 more required by the state. So if Councillor Perkins doesn't want any development in Diamond Creek, ring up his mate Danielle Green, ring up his mate Richard Wynne and say, we're off limits for development. I'm a member of the Labor Party. I want you to stop it in Diamond Creek. If he doesn't want to do that, then stop the scaremongery. All of the current overlays exist. Nothing changes by way of the planning schemes. This is a document about diversity. You know, it's very easy to turn up as Councillor Perkins does and start the scaremongering about facts which are wrong. But worse than that, he's been here a decade. Where has he been for a neighbourhood character study for the last 10 years? He was chair of planning for 2 of them. Where has he been looking at the overlays in Diamond Creek? Nowhere to be seen. So to turn up now and go, oh dear, what a drama. We're doing some work about the stuff you should have done a decade ago. It's a bit rich. This group of consultants, this group of councillors is trying to deal with the matters left over, many of them by the past. But the community will have its say. I commend them to have a look at it. We'll have a look at their views and then we'll come up with a good document, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? And that is carried.
Division.
I was waiting for it. All those in favour? Councillor Rankin, Councillor Egan, Councillor Ashton, Councillor Clark. All those against? Councillor Brooker, Councillor Jimeric and Councillor Perkins. Thank you. Staff okay? We'll now move on to 075, the 2020 Annual Community Survey. And that is now up on the board. Can I have a mover for the motion, please?
I'll move the motion, Mayor.
Councillor Brooker, thank you. As per the papers?
Yes, as per the papers that we just saw.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Perkins. Back to you, Councillor Brooker.
Hi, look, it's interesting. The area that's used, that's commented as the most important issue is traffic management. It's interesting tonight we've got two massive transport projects that we'll be talking about a little later. But just to comment on the top issue for Greensboro Plenty, that is the Blue Lake Ward, part of the Shire. Bushfire management and prevention was nominated by 30% of respondents as their number one issue. That, as we know, was predicated most likely by fire in the Plenty Gorge on the 30th of December that required residents to enact their fire plan, and the survey was taken in February and March, so this issue was front of mind. The number of people nominating bushfire management was way down as an issue in the rest of Nillumbik. I would have expected it to be by far really the number one. I mean, after all, for the month of January, bushfire dominated the nightly news, albeit in other parts of the country in rural New South Wales and eastern Victoria. And this is, I think, one of, we conclude we have this rather manic depressive attitude towards the issue. When it occurs, it automatically becomes the number one issue in the immediate locality, but not in the other neighbouring areas. I think that in spite of the attention it receives, it is only when it is literally on our doorstep that we, in our immediate short-term memory, that we elevate it in importance to our number one issue. This, I would speculate, is the problem when we are told to prepare and advance a fire plan. So many, it seems, have this wait and see approach, and we've got evidence that we're really not in the correct psychological state to make the type of decisions we need to make when, we have a fire, in the case on the 30th of December in the Plenty Gorge, literally a few hundred metres away. Returning to the 30th of December, I hope it was a prescient warning about having a fire plan and leaving early, because the consequence of not doing so was put in stark, vivid terms when around 5 p.m. that afternoon, residents over Buyang Crescent in Apollo Parkways were advised it was too late to leave. That advice was an extraordinary realisation for many that fire was not abstract or something that happened in rural New South Wales and Victoria, but could, threaten even them in the urban areas of Greensboro and Plenty. The takeout of that is just the importance of that oft-repeated, but I fear too little heeded, mantra about preparing a fire plan prior to the start of the fire season. But in terms of the actual community survey per se, there's an awful lot of information contained within it. It is available, I believe, online. Actually, is that a question through one of the offices? Is the survey available online? Maybe that's something we can look at. But there is an awful lot of metrics around satisfaction with various council services. And pretty much it was a good result overall for Nillumbik. We gradually, we increased our overall satisfaction. Marginally, there were very good results in governance. There were very good results in customer service that was spoken about previously. And there was generally it was trending up overall. Waste management was an issue that people were particularly satisfied with, which was encouraging, green waste, recycling, and so on. So, look, overall, the survey painted a fairly positive picture of life in Nillumbik, which is gratifying, I guess, as councillors. It is really a really good litmus test, I think, of how we're going. It was done in February, March, so it's pretty much covers the year of 2019. Look, that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. And just to let the public know that the survey will be available online after tonight. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Perkins, over to you.
Thank you. So 500 randomly selected residents, face to face. This survey has been going, for almost as long as I have, Councillor Clark, almost a decade. If we look through the survey, we can see that respondents in Diamond Creek and the rural precinct are far more satisfied than the average. And respondents from Eltham, an area which Councillor Clark knows quite well about it, are somewhat more dissatisfied, to quote the officers. So somewhat more dissatisfied with council's overall performance than the municipal average. So what I know in terms of being on council for a number of years is you have to advocate on behalf of your residents, on behalf of the the people who elect you, Councillor Clark. You've got to do a lot more than stick a poster up over your left shoulder that says vote 1 Peter Clark. You actually got to look after the interests of your ratepayers. You've got to look after the interests of the people that elect you and advocate on their behalf, and not on the behalf of yourself and your developer mates. You've got to work a lot harder at looking after your rate base, Councillor Clark, in Eltham. Danielle Green is one of my friends. I'm proud to say that, and so is Vicky Ward. And we looked at the budget and we saw that 50% of the capital works budget, about $16 million has been provided for by the state government. 50% of the capital works budget. It's fantastic to have friends that actually work on behalf of the community alongside some of our councillors, and actually do good work for the community. But not all of us are in that boat, it's fair to say. There's a lot of standouts in terms of the document. Once again, traffic management is a big issue. That's the most important issue for Nillumbik Council to address, the document tells us. And I know that, having wide-scale, residential development, as our housing strategy reports and plans for, is doing exactly the opposite of what people want in Nillumbik, and particularly in my ward that I represent in Diamond Creek. So traffic management is a massive issue. Roads maintenance and repairs, again, is a big issue. Rubbish and waste issues, building, housing, planning, development. These are the major issues that people are telling us. What we need to do, Councillor Clark, to get re-elected is work harder, at taking this document on board, listening to people, acting on what they want. That's how we get re-elected. We've got to work harder than just putting a poster up. So traffic management is a standout. To see safety in public areas has improved. Certainly, the built form in Diamond Creek, people are very, very happy. I'll get that through the document. They're happy with council's new developments, and I'd say that would particularly go to Margaret Oval, the new pavilion there, and the netball pavilion, and the soon-to-be opened $2.5 million regional playground that my mate Danielle Green has actually secured the funding for. So I'm happy to support the motion, and it's a good survey. The challenge for council is for some of us to actually listen to people and act upon the results of the survey.
Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Ashton, love to hear from one of the rural councillors.
I think that this survey was really good. I think that, as a new council, we've generally improved every year. I'd like to thank all councillors and the team there, because my understanding is that not just Diamond Creek, Councillor Perkins, but the rural areas have actually been incredibly buoyed over the last 4 years, and we've actually returned better results in these surveys than any ever done prior, which It's not just down to the councillors in those wards, but to the councillor group generally, I think, for the united front that we've put and the work that we've done together. With regard to bushfire management, Councillor Brooke, it's very reassuring that you now probably understand a little bit of the angst and some of the frustration that our residents feel, and that you may be more perhaps sympathetic when we do talk about issues that happen close by to where I live, and how people in the area near where I live feel each fire season. And my parents are actually in the retirement village right at the back of the gorge, and yeah, it was a very, very hairy afternoon. So yeah, but I don't think that result from the survey is just with regard to your ward. It's still number 3. Prior to that, it's been number 2. I think definitely living in Nillumbik, it's always going to be a really high priority, and one that council can only work in very small increments to improve. Just really quickly, other highlights for me were the fact that this council has done a lot of work with the LGBTI community, and that was reflected in the survey, and that again, we've come a long way in 2 years. The Ida Hobbit Day, and we ran a forum over the weekend, the Q&A. You know, small things that really mean a lot when you're feeling isolated or not part of a community, and I think we've done really well as a council. Also the arts, again, we've done really well, and it was really pleasing to see that people out near where I live in the country areas really do attend a lot of the arts things that we hold out here, and they're small events, local events, and we're doing really well. So great survey, really reflects well on everybody, great team effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ashton. I totally, as the other rural councillor, concur with your views, as well as thanking all the staff for all of the work they do that actually goes into contributing to this survey. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Demerick, thank you.
Thank you. Well said, Councillor Ashton. I think that there has been a fair bit of equity across all areas through this council. So, but we do see the same recurring themes showing up. We still have very high satisfaction with our garbage collection, recycling. So it's with some disappointment that we are changing that over on the 1st of July, but as I say, it's always been one of the diamonds in our crown, and continues to be through this survey. I'd like to give a shout out to the guys from our Parks and Gardens team. Again, you know, it's a fantastic facility, strongly backed up by the amount of residents that come out to support the non-sale of our reserves. So, you know, I think people really do appreciate having a little bit of space, some trees around, some great parks, and they don't need to be full of plastic equipment. They just need to be places where people can walk, play with their dogs, go for a run, kick a footy, you know, whatever. So keep up the good work, guys. Again, street lighting is highly regarded. Litter collection, street trees is another one which we're starting to go poor on. You know, it's with some disappointment. You hear the chainsaws around the place all the time. We've got a number of, you know, while our plantings are going up, we've got a number of people, which makes it more important about the street trees, the number of developers that are coming in and just clear felling blocks, clear fell them, bench them, and the trees disappear. So it becomes more and more important that our street trees, our street planting is there if we want to protect the look and feel of the village. It is a special place, and it's quite unique, all the villages around the place. So let's keep on that. Again, traffic management, and you know, which sort of goes to the infrastructure part of it. We need to be very clear about, you know, where we're putting things and what we need to put in place to make that comfortable. So whether it's sewerage, whether it's roads, whether it's footpaths. And again, to the infrastructure team, they're doing a lot of work at the moment on getting some really clear definitions for footpaths and roads, so that we can be very clear on where our highest priority is and where it is around hubs such as primary schools, whether it be in the rural area or in North Eltham or downtown Eltham. And the same thing about train stations, local shops, those sort of things. So we look forward to that work coming out, but I think the same issues keep coming up and we should keep working on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demeric. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I thank Councillor Perkins for being my spokesperson. He's doing a great job of advertising the work I'm doing, so thanks for that. Can I say, I don't think that the survey broadly, the numbers have changed much over 4 years and probably over 6 years, to be frank. What it does tell us is a couple of things, I think, and it basically says that people are very much still concerned about the basics and maintenance type issues. They're very concerned, as Councillor Brooker and Councillor Egan touched on, about the fire concerns in the community and the preparedness for that. And we've done the best we can do and with further work in that space. But they're very much interested in the maintenance of the roads, the maintenance of our gardens and our curbsides, the footpaths. It's broadly all of that sort of stuff. Now, we've done an exceptional job in advocating in terms of capital works. Councillor Perkins is the long-serving councillor, having been here over a decade. But in his own heart of hearts, he knows, and he's commented to us all, in his first 6 years, nothing happened much in Diamond Creek by way of capital works. He didn't get the support of the other councillors. The last 4 years have seen massive growth, massive growth in whatever area we can do to support right across the Shire. And I agree that it has broadly been a team effort of advocacy and the good work that we've advocated to the state government. No doubt about that. We've had support from Vicky Ward as a local member and Daniel Green. But it has been, a lot of it's been our advocacy. When I started, North East Link wasn't on, it was on the federal government's agenda to a minor extent. It wasn't even on the state government's agenda. It wasn't a policy priority. It was something we pursued very hard over the first 3 months and managed to force those sort of issues. So a lot of what you can do happens through advocacy. We're going to talk about a couple of issues later on tonight. But broadly, the community says, work harder, get the maintenance right. We don't give you a lot of points for all of these big projects, but good to have them. But do the basics, get them right, and we're still a bit worried about our rates. And it's a useful document, but I wouldn't. It doesn't, I think, change where we've gone. Certainly, what I came to be elected upon, I've pursued obviously vigorously. And they're basically the issues that are still contained in this survey, and we've got still a long way to go. Got a lot of things in the drawing board, so it's not until the Yanyuan roads stage 2s and others get built, or some train lines get extended and other stuff, that we'll see a lot of change. But we've certainly set, I think, a framework for a lot of advantage in a very, very short period of time. And the community is just saying, good work for that, but get on with the maintenance, don't forget it. So good to listen to it, but overall, steady as she goes.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So I think that's covered off nearly every councillor. And that is the case. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you, councillors. Just checking with staff. Our next item is 076, Year 1 Performance Domestic Wastewater Management Plan, and they're getting quicker. Well done. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? I actually can't. Councillor Brooker.
Happy to second it, Mayor.
Sorry, we just had a bit of a glitch then and I couldn't see who was moving the motion.
Happy to second it.
All right. Moved Councillor Brooker, second Councillor Clark. Councillor Brooker.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I want to make a point in the domestic wastewater management plan about Yanyin Road Stage 2. So just stay with me for a moment. What is necessary is that Major Roads Projects Victoria integrate their duplication, their road widening with Yarra Valley Water in the context of reprioritising those areas of plenty, but more particularly Yarrambat, with the community sewerage program. It makes logical sense for those projects to be considered concurrently. It is important that Nillumbik contribute to that conversation, and that is, it's heartening in the report to see that we're having quarterly meetings with Yarra Valley Water. But if you're making massive infrastructure upgrades, it would seem logical to utilise that time so that at some future point, when the landscape has to be dug up in years to come, to connect Yarrambat to community sewerage at the time you're doing the duplication of the road. So council, from an environmental perspective, can really encourage those conversations and really hope they'll get some favourable reprioritisation when that occurs next year for community sewer to Yarrambat. So it is for council and myself, I suppose, to make that argument for that to happen. The timing is to get Yarrambat connected to the community sewer program is at the same time as the road widening of Yanyin Road. And that is specified in the council papers here, and it's an important point to make about the program. More generally, I think it's encouraging that these reports now are kind of come back to us annually for review. There's of all it's the most colourful report, but of all the areas that are within it, I think there's nothing I'd really have an issue with. I think R7 talked about a local law about requiring people to upgrade their system if it was failing. That's going to be a work in progress. But for now, that's all I have on domestic wastewater. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you. And again, officers put a lot of work into this. This is a really, really difficult thing for councils to grapple with because we have so many historic septic systems in the district, and the previous way of trying to attack this was on a very ad hoc basis. Basically, when a property got sold, it was an opportunity for people to be contacted and asked for their septic to be reviewed. Whereas with this new plan, we're looking at those areas that are highest risk of polluting waterways, which is how it should be. And it's also about community education. And to replace a septic can be very expensive. So I think by working with the community and doing it in small sections, and particularly those sections which impact on the Diamond Creek and also through the back of Warrandyte into the Yarra, that is going to be a really strong model that we can use going forward. So it has been very much about information, data collection. I think at one stage we didn't even know how many septics we had. So we're doing the education and awareness. I agree with Councillor Booker. It's a great opportunity for us to work with Yarra Valley Water and Major Projects Vic. A great way of advocating for sewer along the Yanyin Road. Whether that occurs or not, I would hope so, but we shall see. Eltham South is still being sewered at the moment. So gradually parts of Nillumbik are being put on the sewer. This actually obviously impacts on our housing strategy, and in the rural areas, that's one of the reasons where even in the township we are very limited with any expansion of housing, because we don't have the land capacity out there to do so. So I think it's all tracking well. It's really good that the officers have come back to us to track the year one performance against the document that we signed off, when was it, in June of last year. So it seems a long while ago, but yeah, well done. And yeah, I think it's a good document, and I'll be excited to see what happens next year.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I concur entirely with Councillor Ashton? This is good work and it's picked up what we started off with problems. I was re-listening the other night to some commentary by one of the action groups out there known as ECAG, who was complaining about turnover of staff at council. Can I just highlight, this is one of the good pieces of work where turnover is work to treat. Some of the officers doing this work have turned what has been a 30-year malaise into not much happening, into a very short period of time with an awful lot happening. Great knowledge, great clarity about the systems that we have in the Shire, and excellent support in advocacy. I've lived in Eltham South for nearly 30, or just on 30 years. And for 30 years, we've been promised and promised and promised the area will be sewered. It's not far off the Yarra. We're going to sort it all out. I've got letter after letter for every state member that have gone through and nothing happened. And it is great to see, but by the end of 2021, it will finally have concluded. And that's with the good work of Yarra Valley Waters Board, and I appreciate the additional $2 million they allocated to the project, the advocacy and the support of council officers who have pursued it exceptionally diligently, and obviously the advocacy of councillors as well. But for a lot of the players where stormwater and sewerage leaks from property to the next property, this will overcome historic problems. And I note in the terms of the report that a lot of other smaller communities, parts of Yarrambat, parts of Plenty, parts of other parts of the Shire have now been brought forward under Yarra Valley's plan for getting some proper sewerage happening. So this is probably a bit boring in many respects. You talk about drainage and septics and stormwater, but this is the basics that we're talking about from our community survey a minute ago about what the community want to see. So I commend the report from the officers. It's very clear. The spreadsheets are excellent. They're very clear about dates of actions, what's going to happen by when. They have picked this up in a really, really short period of time and doing excellent work. And just while I'm at it, in my last 10 seconds, can I highlight the same sort of work that's happening in planning generally? This is part of the planning sort of unit that Rosa is running. Rosa Zazoulis, the director of that. The backlog of planning stuff, which has been sitting around a while, has turned itself around in the last 3 months, particularly with bringing stuff online. I think they issued about 51 determinations in the last 2 weeks, one of the greatest number that they've turned over, and the quality of the responses that they've had. But this is the sort of work that we're getting out of excellent, great staff with the support of the councillors doing the advocacy work. This is how local government should work to get good outcomes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to the next item, which is the DAMP, item 77, year 2 and 3 performance. Just waiting for staff to get that up, and they're getting quicker. Fantastic. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Ashton. As per the papers?
Yes, as per the papers, please.
And a seconder, please. Councillor Perkins. Councillor Ashton, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, look, this is looking at the year 2 and 3 performance of the DAMP, and I think, you know, when this came before us in 2017, you know, I think we agreed that there needs to be changes, and I think again it's a reflection on the officers that we have on board about with regard to what we've achieved. Pet registration is up for both cats and dogs. There are less dogs being found roaming at large, which is a good indication of education, and also the way that our rangers and officers have been working with the general public. Our new dog parks are just amazing. They've taken off, and I saw on the news the other night, I think potentially there's going to be another one in Eltham North, when they were talking about pocket parks and extra parks. It's out there on the media, so I'm sure, and I believe some of our existing dog parks might get extended. And I think socialising dogs, as well as socialising the owners, having dogs that are well socialised stops a lot of dog attacks and stops them rushing and attacking other dogs. If you can socialise dogs when they're really young, it really helps with curtailing dangerous or unsociable behaviour. So I think off-leash parks are really good. But also we were also encouraged where dogs walk on tracks and trails. I know I was having issues with particularly cyclists, feeling that dogs were out of control, and we did increase the number of patrols where people were going along and talking about what responsibilities in shared areas. And I think, you know, if we want Nillumbik to be the trails capital of Victoria, we all need to have all trail users being responsible and respectful of each other. Not only have we done that work, we recognise very much now that people that are facing a crisis, whether it's a mental health crisis or whether it's somebody trying to escape family violence, one of the reasons people don't leave or don't get help is because they don't want to leave their pet. And we can help those people with temporary accommodation for their pets. So again, and that also means we've got people out in the community that are not only educated around animal welfare, but also have good insights into family violence and the dynamics and the psychology of that. So that's a really good thing too. We've used a lot more social media, microchipping of pets. We SMS people when there's fireworks. So like me, you can lock your dogs up. And again, that's Stop Dog Leaving. So we've been really much more interactive. Pet Expo in October 2019. It's a good key community event. People can get together. We can have discussions with people. I think we had 3,500 people there. I'm not sure how many four-legged people there were, but again, they're always successful, except when the weather occurs, occasionally stops them. So we're well on track with all the objectives in the dam. I think it's a really good dam. I think it will only become better and better and more expanded. So I look forward to Pat's working on the next one. So very much support the recommendation. And again, congratulations to everybody in planning and you know, infrastructure who worked as a really good team in this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ashton. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Councillor Ashton has pretty well covered it, done a good job there, Jane. Just in terms of, you know, she's right, animal registrations have been going up for both cats and dogs, particularly dogs. A minor change we've made to the budget in terms of what's going to be proposed in a couple of weeks' time is that for a D-sex dog, it's about the same as what it's always been, about $50 to register your dog. But if you've got an entire dog, the charges are up around $300, and we've brought that back to $200. You know, that we'll wait and see how it goes. The hope is that more people will register their entire dog. There's some anecdotal evidence that because those fees are so high, being currently six times more than a D-sex dogs, that you know, people with an entire dog weren't registering their dog because they weren't happy to pay the $300. We're bringing that back to $200. And for cats, there's no change. So an entire cat, to register an entire cat will be about $300. So I see that as a positive thing moving forward, but time will tell. Certainly, Councillor Ashton is right. You know, the use of SMS and social media in this area, animal management, has been a real standout for many years. It's been an effective way to help, you know, when fireworks are planned as well. The only thing I'd say, you know, pulled out of the budget, that in terms of, you know, what does this area bring into council? Well, in registration fees, we get $800,000 in registration fees. Animal infringements, about $73,000, and the pound, in terms of pound release, about $47,000. So it's $920,000 that the ratepayers provide in really implementing the domestic animal management plan. And for me, just a little bit of a standard is the Pet Expo is our major education event annually, and you know, from an annual income of $920,000, I think we can do a bit better than $29,500. I'd like to see the Pet Expo get some more funding and be brought back to life. I don't think it's doing quite as well as it could. That's probably because really the lack of funding to it. So from the $920,000, I'd certainly like to see the Pet Expo get a little bit more attention and a clearer share of that income. But that's an operational decision for the the CEO to take away and consider. Apart from that, supportive of the report, and the officers are doing good work. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Perkins, the screens all froze then. Thank you for that. Any other councillors wish to
You could still hear me though. Could you hear me? Because I can say it again.
The others, I think the gallery did, but not
Sure.
screen and not, yeah, everybody's nodding.
I heard you.
In the
Yeah, we
absence
could
of doubt,
certainly hear you. We
oh,
could hear you.
okay.
It
You
was
couldn't see
only
me though.
10 Seconds, don't panic.
I thought-
Okay, all right.
Any other councillors wish to speak?
Go on then.
Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Brooker.
Just, well, you certainly have to conclude the Nillumbik cat and dog population is growing a heck of a lot faster than our actual population after having a look at that report. As described in tonight's housing strategy, the cat population's up 24% over 2 years, dog population up 21% over 2 years. So given this population explosion, it is gratifying to see another off-lead dog park that's going to be established in Eltham. I think in Donny's Reserve it's referred to. And they're getting a good go, the state government MPs tonight. But again, there was state funding for this project from Vicky Ward, I would say, given it was in Eltham. So we do need to acknowledge that when it occurs in a generous way, which is what I always try and do. But it's a really good outcome for the reasons the other councillors have said. To socialise dogs and dog owners is a really important thing. So it's a good report. It's the announcement about the dog park was a really good full stop exclamation mark on the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Any other councillors wish to speak?
Just it's more just a comment. Councillor Brooker is correct. There is a very good dog park that is going to be built in Danzy's paddock. It's currently under development at the moment and has been funded by the state government. It's been great work by council officers on putting together a proposal and won a bid this year. The project's been on the books for the last 3 years and has sort of, due to other considerations, has struggled to be completed. But as it turns out, we've been able to save council money, and with the help of our state members and the state government, secured what looks like it will be a great outcome for the residents of North Eltham. And as you know, we look at, as Councillor Brooker noted, if we look at the number of people who pay pet registrations, if we were to treat them as a football club or a group of people playing a sport, they'd be one of the biggest groups within the Shire. So I think a lot of them sort of feel frustrated about paying registration, and it just seems to be a way that we can chase them up and wrap them on the knuckles if their dog's out or their cat's gone stray. And I think recognising some of the needs of these people and putting it back in, as Councillor Perkins mentioned, into investment into pets and those type of things is a good thing. So I look forward to it and commend the paper.
Well said, Councillor Jemerick. If nobody else wishes to speak, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is unanimous and carried. Thank you. We now move on to 078, Vegetation Clearance Advocacy. What was that? Sorry, we just had a little bit of interference then. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Peter Clark.
Mayor, I had some additional words to add to the resolution, and they were, and
Is that what you wanted, Councillor Clark?
For the letter, and after the words Danielle Green, after full stop, and seeks their support for the review proposed.
Have you got that, Katya? Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Perkins. Back to you, Councillor Clark.
What a combination. Can I simply say, if there is something beyond anything else which I would commend to the local members for them to do, it would be this. There is more complaint I think all of us get outside of the rural areas where this wouldn't apply to anyway, because there are different circumstances. This is very much an urban issue in many respects. All of us had the issue, and we have taken legal action against one company and one individual, but there are rogue developers out there, and I attended another one the other day in Councillor Rankin's ward, where they seek to use, sometimes abuse, and then knock down a couple more trees on the premise of, oh, I didn't know they were within the 10 metre. And so it's the abuse of the 1030 or 1050 rule, wherein in the urban areas, people would expect protection by significant tree overlays and other landscape overlays, which is subverted by this law. Now, in some cases, there would be good reason why it's subverted by the law, because it was brought in after the Royal Commission, after the 2009 files. But a lot of things government do, initially it can be a blunt instrument, and it doesn't act as neatly as it could. And so this, rather than proposing an immediate change, which we can't do anyway, to our own planning scheme in an effort to change something which is a state policy just in our shire, we can seek a review by the state government to look at how they could finesse this policy to ensure that we do not lose the massive amount of tree canopy which we are losing as a result of 1030 when people seek to abuse that right. I certainly would be saying to anybody who wishes to build or develop in our shire, play within the rules. The rules are there for good reason. One of the reasons you might have acquired a property, or even if you already reside here and wanted to make an addition or do something else, it is because of the beautiful environment, the treescapes and the canopy that does exist. So we need to respect it. But unfortunately, the current law doesn't assist us to respect it. So as Chair of Planning, I spoke with officers about bringing forward an advocacy document about trying to deal with this particular matter. And they've prepared the report as per the agenda tonight. And certainly it does note under dot point 11 that there is a view. It does say anecdotally, because we've not done a measured study at this particular point, but there is plenty of anecdotal evidence. Substantive vegetation removal from individual property poses a significant threat to the highly valued tree character of Nillumbik's shires. So I commend the resolution. I encourage the local members to engage with this. This is going to be a very difficult policy area. It's not unique just to our shire. I would suspect, and I'll talk to Councillor Perkins about this, but I think this would be something to take forward also to the MAV State Council to seek to get the broader support of that organisation, because it does impact whether you're at the Shire of Mornington. A lot of the interface councils are dealing with exactly this particular issue. And so our council, we've been very strong. I spent, when I was mayor in the first year, a lot of time with Councillor Jurmerick in his ward, trying to overcome problems of exactly this nature. But even worse, recalcitrant developers who just would not want to play within the rules, and we've taken to court. But in that case, we took an action not dissimilar to this in an effort to try and get the state government to give greater penalties for people that do remove trees. And unfortunately, the minister chose not to do that. So there is still only very small, in my view, penalties applicable to people who destroy our natural environment illegally. And I would encourage all levels of government and all sides of government to have a good look at this. Play within the rules, because that's what we need through our shire, and it's what we want everybody else. And we value our environment, and this recommendation goes a long way to try and protect it. So look forward to some further meetings on this with the Minister if he wants to encourage it. But I think will be one of the most important pieces of advocacy which we will continue to undertake, and I commend the work of officers and the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. And just on that note, talking about MAV that you brought up with Councillor Perkins, the Interface Council has indeed been advocating for that as well. So over to you, Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I'm happy to. It's ironic, really, but I'm happy to support Councillor Clark in terms of what we're trying to do.
What a
is
team.
big pardon?
What a team.
What a team. Yeah. So what we're trying to deal with here, of all things, is people I would refer to as very greedy developers. Very greedy developers trying to put inappropriate development in Nillumbik. They tend to be concentrating mostly in Eltham. They tend to be cutting down the trees in Eltham using these bushfire protection exemptions and putting units in the activity centre. You can actually potentially put in low-rise buildings and have no regard at all for the existing trees that would otherwise be protected. You sort of say, well, I'm claiming the bushfire exemption, cut down the tree, and there's nothing that council or anyone else can do. So we know that it's an issue in Diamond Creek, in the activity centre in Diamond Creek. That's probably the only part where there's an issue, because there isn't any overlays actually protecting the vegetation. That's why we need a neighbourhood character study, and we need to do some of that work before the neighbourhood strategy. But what greedy developers currently have is an open playbook, so they can claim the bushfire protection exemptions. They can go and look at our housing strategy that's in draft form at the moment, out for public consultation, and they can pick away at Nillumbik. The urban areas in Nillumbik are ripe for the picking at the moment, using these exemptions in consort with our housing strategy. They can see exactly the areas that council supports medium density development. Basically all of Diamond Creek, all of Greensborough, large parts, well, not large parts, but certainly parts of Eltham closest to the activity centre. Areas of Eltham that are protected by the significant landscape overlay might not get as much housing development there, but it still doesn't stop at the moment for these greedy developers from chopping down all the trees. I'm happy to support Councillor Clark in trying to deal with greedy developers that would potentially look at our housing strategy, sort of see, oh, yep, you beauty. Nillumbik have planned, the state government said you need to plan for 4,193 new homes. They're planning for 12,772. So let's go. Let's use these exemptions. Let's use council's own document against the community. So, in that sense, it's a little bit ironic, but I'm happy to support the motion, because this certainly is an issue. But I think there's other work that we can do. Even tonight, I think we've perhaps made a mistake by letting that draft Nillumbik housing strategy go through. But I won't labour that point. I'll try very hard not to labour the point that the draft Nillumbik housing strategy should not have been put out to public consultation, because it's a poor process. Thank you.
Labor can fix this
Thank
problem.
you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Jemerick.
It being one of the areas, I suppose the southernmost point of my ward is one of the areas that is being targeted for this at the moment. I would like to thank Councillor Clark for the work he did put into the issue that happened down around Rocknell. It was a blatant disregard for council planning, and it did see a $60,000 fine issued. I don't know that it's been paid, and there's all sorts of other funny tricks going on with the developers there to get around it. It's the same. I think the developer that was there has been declared bankrupt, but he is now working for some other person from Queensland, and in Bird Street has cleared a block, cleared every tree off it. And this is one of the areas that is marked in our area for incremental change and moving towards townhouses And I noticed the block straight across the road has been cleared, every single tree and bench. So it's been taken out. You know, there's supposed to be a permit to take out more than 50 centimetres of topsoil. They've taken out about 1 metre. The same with the area behind the old milk bar has just been clear felled, much to the disappointment of the community. As Councillor Perkins says, I don't believe that the housing strategy should have gone out. One of the issues with the Rocknell area was unclear on the neighbourhood character and the poorly put zones. So part of it was still a road reserve, which had been claimed by a local resident, and then the community loses all the trees sort of in its gateway. So I think this document, I personally would like to see it a little bit stronger. I can understand the reasons for it being tempered. It's a very sensitive issue, and it probably does need a lot more input than just my thoughts on it. But you know, as I say, as a gut reaction, I would like to see it a bit stronger. But you know, if we can get a review and we get something done sooner rather than later, before we sort of end up with Doncasteration of the whole of the Eltham area. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jemerick. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Booker.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, ironically, all the arguments presented in this paper are an argument for commencing a renewed neighbourhood character strategy. It talks about the significant threat to the highly valued tree character of Nillumbik. It talks about the defining element of township character and its need for protection and enhancement. All true, and that is precisely why we need to progress a neighbourhood character strategy that will serve the Nillumbik community over the next 2 decades, as well as C12 has served Nillumbik over the last 2 decades. We're rightly pointing out that the broad exemptions in 52.12.1 allowing 1030 and 1050 are threatening the character and the neighbourhood character of Nillumbik. If that is so, and that is so, that is the justification for a new updated neighbourhood character strategy. It's why just doing housing is very much an incomplete response. So I certainly support the letter to the Minister. It actually quotes, ironically, from clause 22.12. Native and Indigenous vegetation is a particular characteristic that makes Nillumbik distinctive. Well, that very neighbourhood character strategy that has served us well for 20 years needs to be reviewed, as I say. So the next 20, it can support us in VCAT decisions, as Councillor Clark has alluded to tonight, for the next 20 years. We are seriously shortchanging our residents by only focusing on the housing element of the housing framework. The neighbourhood characteristic needs to be central to that whole holistic argument. And that is why it's so important to do both together. And I'm sure that is what's going to come back through the community consultation, but we will see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Any other councillors wish to speak? No, if not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? We lost Councillor Perkins. Just one moment, everybody. Just a bit of a technical hitch. We've lost Councillor Perkins.
Maybe.
Right. Sorry, everybody. Councillor Perkins has had a power outage at his house. We can still vote on that. I think we know where he was going. So hang on, we've got him. Beautiful. Wait a minute.
Councillor Clark, organise that.
No, they're on the same page on this item. So
I thought he might have sent someone round to flick off his switch.
I'm sure that this will be unanimous. Councillor Perkins, are you there? We can see your name, but nothing else.
I'm about to contribute to his account to pay the bill.
Hang on, I'll just unmute him. Can you hear me, Councillor Perkins?
One of his better speeches.
I'm trying to, there I am.
My apologies to the 14 viewers who are watching us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Right, so we're just about to put that to the vote for the Perkins. All those in favour? And it's so fitting that on my screen you and Councillor Clark are next to one another. And that is carried. Thank you.
Brothers in arms.
High five. No high five?
No, you're on the other side. All right, we back to serious business. We'll move on to the next report, 079, which is the State Government Yan Yean Road Stage 2 upgrade project. And there it all is on the screen. And can I have a mover for the item? Councillor Brooker. You're right there.
Look, it is as per the papers, it's fairly lengthy, so I won't read it all out, other than number 4, which has been changed somewhat, authorises the CEO to prepare and lodge a submission to the environmental effects statement process on behalf of council, with a draft of the submission to come to a councillor briefing prior to the councillor caretaker period.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooker. Can I have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Clark. Over to you, Councillor Brooker. Can you unmute yourself, please? Perhaps start again.
Sorry, yeah. Look, before making some comments about Yan Yean Road Stage 2, it's worth drawing some conclusions about Yan Yean Road Stage 1. About halfway through this project, the entire new agency, Major Roads Projects Victoria, MRPV, emerged to manage the project. Essentially, it is a rebadged version of Vic Roads. I would give it a mixed review. I would also give the council, in respect of integrating the many different aspects of this project, a mixed review. The problem was the project extended into so many different areas of council. And I just want to touch on them because we're going to be facing the same issues here in Yan Yean Road Stage 2. But certainly transport, there were implications for rat running, so that had implications for traffic modelling for our traffic department before, during and after construction. There were implications for the environment, and council needed to advise MPRV about the type of trees and the type of seedlings that were going to be used in the landscape response. There was an impact on statutory planning, and we had to examine the impacts of C67, which was the planning scheme amendment, and the environmental impact statement we had to be involved in. The open space team had to be involved in the reuse of habitat timber and the various options of relocation and reuse of that timber for firewood, for mulching, for highest and best use. It impacted our infrastructure department. There was certainly discussion and debate over the use of road profilings from the duplication and where they or could they be used. They eventually were used in Butlers Road. So that was a big issue in terms of using those profilings. There were many issues around statutory planning, around the expanded Diamond Creek Road intersection, because there was more trees needed to be removed from that as that project was extended around that intersection at Diamond Creek. And MRPV withdrew when they required a permit for some additional tree removal. So that again was a kind of contentious issue. The property department were involved, and they needed to coordinate the relocation of the Plenty Church from where it was on Yan Yean Road up to where it now is in Plenty Park. And it also had to advise residents on public acquisition of their private property and their property frontages. There was political involvement. I, with Councillor Clark, wrote to the Minister of Roads about there was some apparent backtracking on some retaining walls that were required as, according to the incorporated document. So it just was a vast area of many moving parts. And the important thing is we have to learn those lessons for Yan Yean Road Part 2. So we can, in my view, coordinate a dedicated officer so all those various touch points with council can be integrated, and so there can be a consistent type response be provided to all of those different elements. And certainly this project is of a similar dimension. It's a slightly longer road, in fact. So it's actually even potentially a bigger one, slightly less land acquisition required for individuals. But it's certainly what we have to do is it's imperative we take those lessons and apply them to Yan Yean Road Upgrade Project 2. I just want to finish by saying I was excluded from the community reference group from the Stage 1 project. I have requested to be included in the Stage 2 community reference group, which is being formed. I have not had confirmation at this time, one way or another, but I would say it demonstrates a complete sham if local political representation is excluded from that group, like it was on Yan Yean Road Stage 1. If people always, and council are, occasionally maybe guilty of talking about, how consultative they are and how they're including the community. Well, it is the challenges for the major road projects to have some political representation in that reference group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Jemerick.
I think Councillor Brooker makes some very good points there, and I'd just like to follow up with, I think with these things, we can be unaware of how broad-reaching they are. This is one of the biggest infrastructure projects that will happen in this Shire, and it affects the entry to the Shire from the north and the way that a lot of people from up the north end of the Shire can move through the Shire. And if it's not done well, it just makes it a pain to come in, hard work, and just makes people's lives miserable. So we need to get in on this on all aspects of it. So whether it's concentrating on the sewerage, whether it's concentrating on being able to get horse floats into the park, whether it's being able to balance people getting into and out of the golf course, whether we're going to do peak hour times, all of these things need to be taken into consideration. And over a couple of road projects we've had where officers are attending as technical support, but they're attending as technical support from building a road rather than creating a community asset. And this is where I think it is important we have a diverse group that channel the information back through probably our roads and infrastructure team, but that we pick up on all those other aspects that are around the Shire, and we get them in on the ground floor rather than trying to make small adjustments to plans that are already done. Because if we do an integrated plan from the start, we can get a really good outcome for the community. And I trust Vic Roads to do a great road, but when it comes to understanding the nuances of a community, particularly a community as it is there, where one side you're very urban, the other side it's a country road, to find that balance is going to take an understanding of how the community works around it. So I just call on officers to make sure that we're not sitting there passively and it's just a meeting we tick off on. It needs to be treated as one of the biggest infrastructure projects that's happening within the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Jemerick. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, mine was the addition of those few additional words at the end to seek to have what is likely to be one of the final submissions that this council via the CEO makes to a government agency before we go into caretaker. And I think to pick up the points of other councillors, we want to make sure that we're picking up the community aspects of this. Just a couple of brief points. I actually think from what I've seen thus far, I'm certainly not as close to it as Councillor Dumeric or Councillor Brooker. But the consultation that's been provided to the council thus far has been better than certainly what I've seen in other parts of the state government. We're going to talk about Fitzsimmons Lane next. If we got anything like what we got for this for Fitzsimmons Lane, we'd be a long way better off. The other thing I think tends to happen in this, and that's what Councillor Brooker was alluding to, is that the state government bureaucrats, all good engineers, are good at designing asphalt and making sure cars run on them safely. It's about the broader community infrastructure. And the way you're going to achieve that is engagement with the local members and the local councillors. Well, that's one of the things that we don't have in this space. We seem to have a disconnect between the contribution that Councillor Brooker seeks to make and the local member is engaging in this sort of work. And that's one of the things I think we need to try and encourage, to see that accurately the community information is getting passed to the minister, rather than just getting another landing strip of asphalt created. Certainly one of the criticisms I would have of Union Road Stage 1 is it's these early days, but some pretty appalling attempts at landscaping and excessive use of cyclone mesh. It might be able to take a lot of cars. It's never going to win an urban design award. And that's what it should be starting to look at. Over the journey, Vic Roads and its successors and predecessors have done some good work in urban design on roads. You know, I noticed early on in our council time, particularly Councillor Ashton fought very hard in the rural areas for all of those bumpers that we've got right along the way. No attempt to get some decent design outcomes and understand how do we get safety with good urban outcomes, or good rural outcomes in that case. And she fought hard to no avail to a large extent. So question is, how do we engage with the government to be able to get the better quality outcomes of design? And I encourage the continued work of the councillors to try and achieve that.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other Councillor Ashton?
Thank you. And again, it's reassuring that as a councillor group, we're very much on the same page with this. I think, you know, Union Road Stage 1, you know, that was a rural road. It very much delineates the green wedge from the more urban. But I think that lack of rural character, particularly, we have an opportunity now in Stage 2. This is really the gateway to Strathewen and Arthurs Creek, and it's the way a lot of people come out through the back way through to Diamond Creek, Hurstbridge, and that part of the Shire. And you know, the proposed treatments of Bannons Lane and Doctors Gully Road seem, if you like, heavy-handed, considering I don't see that you're going to have a huge amount of traffic coming through from those rural areas. You will have traffic coming through from obviously Greensborough and obviously through. Again, you know, please, I think we have to advocate for the fact that we have the rural character in that area, and that's what everyone values. With regard to Yarrambat Park, and I think in the future, I'm looking like 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead, that's going to be our regional, you know, our jewel in the crown. It's going to be a large open recreation park. You know, already we offer golf, mini golf, there's archery there, there's a fishing lake. There's all the gorge tracks and trails running through the back. We do have a trotting track, and there's an equestrian centre, but it really is going to be a very, very important park for everybody in this area to go to that doesn't want to go into a gym or a basketball court. It's going to be somewhere where you walk outside and you do outside activities. So the entrance to the park at the moment is very understated. It's always been that way. I really hope that this is an opportunity to make this look something special for the people of Nillumbik and for those in the adjoining shires that will come there. Anyway, yeah, I think it's really important we advocate now, and we don't wait, and we're really, really clear about what outcome we want for this.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Over to you, Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, my apologies for dropping out before. We had a power outage here, and the computer froze up, so I had to go to the iPad, and now I'm back on the laptop again. So back to normal. But sorry for that brief interruption. Yeah, look, happy to support the motion. And noting that the caretaker period does start on the 22nd of September, I'm hoping that officers can arrange for council to speak to its preference in terms of what we'd like to see, even though we might not have the full submission ready for the environmental fixed statement. I think it's important on the way out to this council just to have a say on the future of Union Road. Certainly, for my own sense of it, I've looked at the three options for the Bridge Inn Road intersection. Option one is basically a massive urban road treatment that turns Doctors Gully Road into a four-lane highway to start with. Union Road takes out half of the Doreen store, the general store as it is. I don't think option one, certainly not palatable to me. I hope that council will support that view. Option two is moving Union Road onto the other side of the Doreen general store. It doesn't look to be a great outcome either. And of the three, I would say the third option.
Can you just direct, I know you've got to read something, but try and talk ahead. Every time you move your head, we lose your sound again.
I'll move you around. I don't want you to miss
you.
a word. Can you hear me now? Yep.
Yeah.
And option three, I think, is the best option because what it actually does is keeps Doctors Gully Road as a small rural road, which is what it should always be. It's surrounded by rural conservation zone land. It's in the green wedge, but importantly, it moves that small rural road, Doctors Gully Road, further north. It would create some issues. Have to compulsory acquire some land there, but it could potentially yield a triangle of land that could be an expanded Doreen Recreational Reserve. So rather than just settle with taking land off the Doreen Recreational Reserve for Union Road and the road running to the west off Doctors Gully Road. Can't think of what it is for me for the moment. What potentially we could see would be the reserve extended onto the other side of Union Road. Large triangle of land that would be great to stay in council or in Crown ownership and have that zone public park and recreation. So looking 22nd of September this year, we'll be honest, before we realise that's the time traditionally when councillors start campaigning. There might be one or two of us who have had an early start. I wish them well, and we'll continue on in this vein. Thank you.
Everybody's positively friendly tonight. It's wonderful to see. Yes, and I'll be keenly interested, as it's in my ward, just to make sure that those trees survive. I'm looking forward to seeing the finer detail in the three options before I make up my mind, but obviously I don't want the store gone. Any other councillors wish to speak? Has everybody had their say? If that's the case, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. We now have a similar item, our next one, 080, which is the Fitzsimmons Lane upgrade. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Clark. Can you unmute yourself, please, Councillor
I
Clark?
couldn't see the screen because when they go to the other screen, you can't unmute. Anyway, I'm happy to move this particular recommendation, Mayor, as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Can I have a
Blowing me a kiss or what?
seconder, please, for the motion? Please, there's only so much I can cope with. Councillor Rankin. Over to you, Councillor Clark.
What a friendly group we are. Look, To be honest, this is a frustrating item, and frankly, it's frustrating it's even got to go on the agenda. And the reason I say that, if there was absolute transparency, good quality public consultation, lots of information out there, engagement with the community, we wouldn't be having to be doing this particular resolution. Unfortunately, we've got everything absolutely opposite to that. At this particular point, we don't even know what the outcome, because we've not been given data, what the value of the massive freeway in this intersection is going to be. We've got insufficient data available to officers by the state government to make an assessment. Are we actually going to get a better road outcome? Well, we're certainly going to get a worse environmental outcome. That is for sure. In what is Eltham's Gateway, we've had planning legislation. We have an overlay about trying to protect the overlay, all of which has been run over the top of. And we've seen some schematic drawings that all we know is they're about to go out to tender for, that they're actually running behind on their tender process. Some ways that could be a positive. But we're just lacking detail. There has been no public meetings on the matter outside of all the public communication that we've tried to undertake. You've had North East Link, who's done public meetings, forums, displays, the whole lot. We've had Yan Yean Road, briefings from councillors in detail, all information, officers part of the working group. And in this case, we've simply got a tender going out with some sketch drawings. And then after that, the contractor is supposedly going to work it out, and we might get to learn something further down the track. It's frankly not good enough. And within all of that context, there's a little bit of work they could be doing, which is some signals at Leanne Drive. And they could be building that right now, totally uncontentious. Could have been built, could have been completed. Governments are trying to find, as we have submitted to them, some immediate works that can start tomorrow as a part of economic stimulus. Well, let me give you project number one, state government, Leanne Drive. There is your stimulus package to get some work happening in a hurry. It's been waiting for many, many years, but no, we're sitting on our hands because we've linked it in with another project. So, the last one I attended was when they released the last set of drawings. I've not been to a more angry public meeting from residents so frustrated, where the bureaucrats actually had to say to the people, stop shouting at us, we're going to have to close the thing down. And they were just furious and frustrated at the way they had been treated. So look, as much as we've worked well with state members on certain matters, on this matter, the state members have not been forthcoming in useful information and have not represented the community as we would have expected, nor has been the transparency or the consultancy going forward. Now, Councillor Perkins talks about Save Our Reserves. That's a very good point. There were some frustrated residents there. And if you look at the outcome there, what happened was we ran full public consultation. We sat there for 3 nights and we listened to residents and we heard what they had to say. And as a consequence of doing that, we listened. And we had created, as a consequence of that, more public land for the community that has been created anywhere else. So all of those which were road reservations are now public parks and going through a rezoning to that. So that is good public consultation. Yes, you're dealing with some people who were frustrated. Some didn't like the potential of the outcome, but we listened and we got a good outcome as a consequence of that, despite the fact that some of our predecessors in council sold massive amounts of land with no concerns whatsoever. So I say to the state government, I say to Vicky Ward, listen, take the community for the journey with you. They understand there is a problem here of congestion. There is a real problem of congestion, but take the community with you on the journey to get a best possible outcome, and all will be well. If you continue down the path you look forward to the next state election and indeed the council elections, where this will become a major issue. I predict that the Wingrave ward elections are only a few months away. And so that's why some might want to look at what's at the background. If you want to be saved from disaster, just look at the sign behind me.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Rankin, and no more signs, please, Councillor Perkins. We have to be able to see your beautiful face. Councillor Rankin. Can you unmute yourself, Councillor Rankin? You might have to take your earbuds out like last time.
He's still got to unmute himself.
Just, it's all right,
Can
Councillor.
you hear me now?
Now we can, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, I'd just like to comment. Councillor Clark picked up some of the points there. I notice in point 20, it talks about we'll have more certainty around the delivery of the projects, including the Leanne Drive intersection upgrade. Leanne Drive has been on the cards now for 20-something years. 20-something years. Councillor Perkins, you would have heard about it before, no doubt. It is something that I ran as part of my campaign to be able to get it onto the agenda. We got it onto the agenda. Vicky Ward helped to push it through. Now it's stuck. Why does why do MRPV need to include it as part of the Fitzsimmons Lane project? We asked them in their presentation to us, they couldn't answer us. Fix Leanne Drive. Fix Leanne Drive before another accident, before a kid gets hit, before there is a death. Seriously, it is not hard. Pull the project apart, get the traffic lights there. There is no other consultation that needs to be done. Vicky Ward, Danielle Green, please help us before a kid gets hit and injured. It's not a new project. It's something I've been banging on for a long, long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Is any other councillors wishing to talk? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to 081. Assembly of Councillors. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Perkins. As per the papers? And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Clark. Councillor Perkins?
No, nothing. I've been here a lot. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, we will just put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you, councillors. The next item we have on the agenda is 082, the proposed contract of sale for the sale of the council land to the CFO. Can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Brooker. Thank you. I'll just wait till we get it up. That noting the report as per the papers. And can I have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Perkins. Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor Brooker?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Look, this is the subject of a confidential report later on in the evening, so I have to be somewhat guarded as to what I can say. But what I can say and talk about, which isn't in the papers that I think that have gone for public display, is the deed of surrender of release. The deed of surrender of lease is an important part of this process now, where the existing fire station, which is leased on the property is owned by the council, that deed of release releases it back to us upon the completion of the sale of the property that is going to take place at Plenty Park to the CFA. That process has been gone through the planning stage. It has been appealed to VCAT. VCAT have sustained the CFA position and granted a permit to build the fire station. So at this point, save a Supreme Court injunction or a case, I think, you know, that we move on with the decision that we have. But there are a number of community groups that have an interest in the locality of the fire station. They include the Girl Guides and the Brownies, who meet in Plenty Hall, the Plenty Historical Society, the Plenty Community Action Group, a group that was formed as an advocacy group around the Yang Yin Road Stage 1. All have an interest on what occurs on that particular site. So certainly I have a view, but I'm interested in the community, and I'm pleased to say we're going to go through a formal process to enable to hear from the community. It's a significant asset, whatever the eventual outcome that occurs on that site, and that is what we're going to have to work through. Is it important it is done in a thorough way where different options are apprised? And I'm sure resourcing the area will be a subject of further conversations so that we can, you know, resource that area that used to house that fire station. That is certainly needs to happen in the next part of this process. That's all about the sale of the land to the CFA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooker. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, just quickly on this. So, you know, I joined Councillor Brooker. This is a good result. It was Council's position that VCAT sustained and upheld. So Council decided to issue the planning permit to build a new fire station for the CFA and for the Plenty community, and what a magnificent facility it will be. Yeah, there were some objections, but I think the right outcome has been delivered to not just the Plenty community, but the broader community of Nillumbik. You know, properly resourcing the volunteers is something that you know, certainly all councillors want to be able to help with, and to that end, we've effectively going through the final stages of negotiation to sell them some land. You know, with the CFA's approval, we'll be able to release that figure at some stage, we hope. But we need CFA to agree to that, and you'll be able to know how much CFA paid council for that land. In terms of what happens to the existing fire station once the new one is built and the firefighters move out of the existing fire station, you know, there has been talk of you know, it reverting back to park, you know, a tree park or a council reserve. There are also other community groups I know of. I mean, in addition to those that Councillor Brooker has talked of, you know, certainly the notion of a Plenty men's shed, you know, that might appear at some point. Diamond Valley Lions have expressed an interest to myself in any case about it. You know, RSLs in the area, I just sort of think of Diamond Creek in terms of, you know, if we had a spare building in Diamond Creek, it would certainly be put to good use. RSL, Old Men, New Ideas, University of the Third Age, some other thoughts, but you know, there will be a broad community consultation round to work out what council does with that fire station, because it will become the property of council. You know, if council want the CFA to demolish that building and return it back to a park, CFA will do that at their cost. But likewise, they'll leave it in a habitable situation if council want to use it, you know, use that building and use that facility for you know, one or more community groups. I think it could form a small version of a community hub for Plenty, and I think the building should be put to good use for the Plenty residents and the wider community. But you know, wait to see what that community consultation says. So you know, this has been a long and protracted situation, and most of all for the Plenty volunteers who still work out of very substandard building. And we hope in the next 12 months or so they'll have a nice shiny new fire station just around the corner that they can respond from and better support the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, we'll put it to the vote. Although, oh, sorry. Councillor Clark, did you wish to speak, or are you voting?
Just briefly, Mayor. to speak?
Yes, keep going.
Just to say, it is important that Plenty gets a new fire brigade quarters. There's no doubt about that. I think Councillor Brooker would be the first to highlight that this has been a process which I think the council, or some councillors certainly felt as though there's been controlled information go through the way to achieve the outcome that some wanted. And by that, I mean, it was deemed that this was the only spot you could ever build a fire station, and Plenty otherwise you'd never ever get one. So nonetheless, the outcome is the outcome. There are, unless this was going to be a fire station on this bit of dirt, there was no way the council would have sold it, or indeed sort of forced to sell it in this context, or indeed anything else would have been built on it. This is a lovely treed park. It's a community asset lost. Now, there is a community asset gained, but we should not forget the community asset lost. And I actually think, like Councillor Perkins, that the existing building does need to be brought back into some sort of community use. And I think, given the loss that's been created for the broader community nearby, it should be incumbent upon the CFA to bring that building back into community use. There is a precedent. It's called Eltham. Eltham got a $10 million brand new CFA station, of which partly was going to be funded by the sale of the old site, of which our council offered to purchase. But the state government kept the old fire station, and they've kept it for what they deemed to be, during the course of the last state election, a community building for broad community purposes, funded by the CFA. Now, it so happens the only broad community use is actually the volunteer fire station. So we've now got two fire stations. We've got the volunteers in the old fire station, paid for by the CFA, supposedly for community use. No problem with that. I'm not sure there are any other groups using it. And we've got the brand spanking new big fire station, run and sourced by the union-controlled component of the firefighters union. So the nature of the CFA...
it's a CFA building as well.
The nature of
the union don't own any building.
Well, I think you're getting a bit sensitive as a member of the union here, Councillor Perkins, but nonetheless, what we have got is the precedent of the CFA funding a continuing use of the existing CFA station for community use. So I call on Danielle Green to work with Councillor Brooker to achieve the same outcome that was achieved in Eltham, that this building be returned to the community, and returned to the community in a restored manner so they can get on and use it, whichever community groups are going to do so. The precedent is there. The CFA should be able to fund it, if nothing else, for the recompense of the concerns of the massive, beautiful park that was lost as a consequence.
Thank you. We will now put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you. Our next item is 083, the quarterly risk and safety report. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Rankin. As per the papers?
As per the papers, ma'am.
And can I have a seconder, please, for the motion? Councillor Clark, over to you, Councillor Rankin.
There's really not much to talk about. It's going to confidential session, and we're just noting the report. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Our next item is 088 Whittingham Circuit update. You okay, staff?
Move the council notes the report.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Seconder, Councillor Brooker. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Clark? Councillor Brooker? I'll just unmute you. Shall I start again?
Sorry. There's the same situation as before. This is going to a confidential part of the meeting, so cannot say too much. Look, I just do want to say though that this Whittingham circuit, we've watched it get developed, or the subdivision take place, and we've continued to watch it. Certainly, I think what needs to happen is we need to have a status update for the community who are interested in what is going on there, having observed the process now for the people who opposed the sale of the land way back to, the campaign for that was way back, commenced in 2007. It went through various, iterations, planning scheme amendments. Finally, the land was sold, planning scheme amendment made for 26 houses, 26 dwellings, 29 structures, I think, on both sites, the high site and the Whittingham Circuit site. And it's been, what we really want to find out is what has happened. And I think it would be interesting to provide why we are in this position this evening. So all I can say at this point is that the situation is being progressed, but it's not, it's not a situation that I think anyone can be particularly proud of. That when council land was sold, it was then subdivided for housing, that many years later, there is still no housing on both sites. It's a very curious kind of outcome. It makes you kind of wonder where this should all end. Certainly, Grey Sharps Road, that development was pulled by the council in one of our first weeks. So I'm not contemplating that, and I don't think the people of Greensborough are really contemplating that. But what we do want to see is something, we've given up the public open space, and it doesn't look at this point as though the council has, realised any particular value from that loss that the residents have felt. So we need to progress the whole situation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooker. Any other councillors wish to speak? If not, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Our last public item for the evening is 084, the CEO Employment Matters Committee Mid-Year Review. A report to be noted. Can I have a mover? Councillor
Ready
Rankin.
to move it as per the papers.
As per the papers, and a seconder, please. Councillor Perkins. Anybody wish to speak? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Could I now, first of all, I'd like to thank the gallery and particularly the staff here. I'm not sure whether the public realise, but we've at some stages tonight, we've had up to 22, 24 staff in the background here in various places making this happen. So I'd just like to give them a big thank you because they keep on doing an amazing job.
Social distancing, of course.
Yes, they're all in different rooms, which just makes some of the glitches that we've had trying to communicate them, it makes it quite difficult to resolve some of them. So on a serious note, they're really doing an amazing job, and not many councillors are even attempting to do what we're doing. So well done to the staff. I would now like a mover to go into confidential, please, because we still have some items.
Happy to move it as happy to move.
Councillor Rankin and seconded Councillor Clark. All those in favour? And it's good night from myself and all the councillors at Nillumbik Shire. So if the councillors can just